Thanks for the trust and for welcoming me. Okay, so let's start from me talking about images and text. At the end of the day, graphic design is the discipline that combines words and images, and that's what I am. I'm a graphic designer, and I put together here on the first slide just different examples of the work that I've been doing, just to give you a little bit of a first taste. You can see straight away that maybe in a way I'm not a designer that focuses so much on images, but I focus a lot on words, on typography. I'm actually a typographic type of designer. And during the presentation, I will show you different examples of my work so that things will become a little bit maybe like more lighthearted, and I will tell you about my points, the points I want to make through showing you examples of what I did in graphic design. I would say like this description I wrote on visual communication and the socio-political impact in creative work. So I just made a very short sort of like resume of what I described in the blurb for this presentation. I prefer to use the word visual communication rather than graphic design, and I will tell you why. And I prefer to use the word creative work rather than creative industries or creativity, which sound always a little bit more, I don't know, fake or naive to me or something like that. Basically, in the presentation, I will tell you a little bit about my past and background, hopefully, of me working in visual arts. And then I'm a little bit of a multidisciplinary designer, so there will be a little bit of like type design, a little bit of web design, publishing, and also I work in education now. Actually, maybe I should have said, I'm a lecturer. I teach graphic design at It's okay. At UE Bristol, which is the University of the West of England. I've been working there for 7 years, and yeah, so you get an idea. I teach at the graphic design BA there. I'm gonna make the 2 points that I want to make in this presentation straight away, and then I'm gonna go more into details by showing you the examples of my work later, I guess. So one of the points I want to make is that while, let's say, in mainstream culture, there is this general idea that design is a mere tool for aesthetic enhancement. So it's about designing eye-catching things, eye-catching logos, advertising, and eye-catching websites. But I think, in my opinion, the way I always saw design is like more as a medium for communication. So it's a very powerful medium that we can use in different ways. And communication, at the end of the day, can mean lots of different things. So if we think deeply about what it means, it can mean things like shaping perceptions, disseminating information in the best possible way, or creating new meaning, or communicating values in our culture, or reflecting on our culture. So maybe communication or visual communication can actually be used rather than at the service of capital, corporation, and profit as a catalyst for social change, hopefully, or to do things like giving space to marginalized voices, etc. So I'm going to give you some examples of that. The other point that I want to make through showing you all the examples is that in all creative processes, there are different dynamics involved. So it's not only socio-political, but also psychological, commercial, economical, or even ethical. And I think as a practitioner, as a designer, it's actually quite important to be aware of these dynamics and almost like be able to shuffle around them and be aware of like the impact that you have in the creative process from the beginning to the end, like with what you put out into the world, but also what materials you use, etc. Right? So I think that's the way to be a practitioner, a creative worker in a way. So when Carolina asked me to put together a flyer for this presentation, I opened Adbusters magazine. Maybe you know it. So it's a great Canadian magazine based in Vancouver. It's a magazine about, let's say, philosophy and anti-capitalist theory. This issue is called Design Anarchy, and I opened it, and the double-page spread represents a lot of what I want to talk about today. So first of all, it's a double-page spread, so it's a lot about what I do in my work. I design publications. On a double-page spread, you've got the right and the left, and there's 2 different ideas of design here. So this is a famous Philip Stark orange grinder, how do you call it? Sweet? Juicer. The very famous Philip Stark orange juicer from I think it was like 1998, if I'm right, or something like that. So it was the late 90s that he produced that. And it came out, and it was a very fancy object. It's probably like around £300 to buy one, something like that. And you would buy it as a status quo object, and it's beautiful. It's made of beautiful, linear, formal shapes. Philip Stark was a master in doing that, like designing beautiful shapes. There is only one characteristic about this orange squeezer, that it doesn't work. That if you try to squeeze your oranges in there, basically like all of the juice goes down the legs, or you just make a fucking mess. So I actually like a lot more this other idea of design. This is not a design object per se, but it's more like a tool. In a way, it's almost like, there was like a famous designer, I don't know who said, good design is invisible. So it's almost like you look at this sort of orange squeezer and you don't even think it's a design object. You think of it as a tool, but you see how more democratic it is. It's cheaper. Everyone can afford one. You can probably produce it in mass production, and it does the job. And it's making this amazing juice that you want to drink. And like, if you think about it in terms of culture, I like also like this vision of like, I don't know, something like squeezing in terms of like visual communication, the mind of people, and make them think about something. It's just like that. Let me say something about my past, about my background. So I come from Italy, from the north of Italy, and I come from an area which is known as Motor Valley. So these are the logos of Ferrari and Lamborghini. I grew up looking at a Formula One track, and I will come back to that later to tell you why somehow like my past is connected a little bit to car engines, etc. By the way, on the train, I met a guy from Coventry who told me that he was a miner, and Coventry was rich in car factories. There was Jaguar here, etc. So I didn't know that. That's amazing. And we had this really nice conversation where I felt like there was a bit of a connection there. This is basically representing a certain vision of design again. So it's sports car. If you tell any Italian person to think about design, normally they would think about fancy furniture, fashion design, or fancy red sport cars. Maybe the other reason why I wanted to put this image as like a way to represent where I come from, is because on both sides of my family, both grandparents from both sides were all farmers, and I'm the first person who graduated in my family. And if you look at the logos, beautiful design. I didn't design them, of course, right? This is not my work. If you look at the logos, they're both domestic animals. They're both animals that you would find in a farm. And the reason for that, maybe not many people know, is because both factories, Ferrari and Lamborghini, in the past, they used to produce tractors for agriculture. And making those really strong engines was then translated into making sports cars. So maybe that's a part of the design world that I come from that maybe I've been trying to steer away from. And I want to show you this other object here, which is maybe representing a little bit more what I'm thriving to, what inspires me as a designer. So this is called La Pedalina printing press. It's a monument now. So it's basically a printing press from 100 years ago that used to work with a pedal. That's why it's called like that. It's 2.5 tons of craft iron. It's not very good looking, I know. It's not as good looking as a Ferrari car. But I'm gonna tell you the story maybe around it, and maybe you're gonna love it a little bit more later. So this printing press was transported in the early 1940s from Imola, from my hometown, to the next village of Conselice, where it is now as a monument, by a fishmonger that had this in the back of his truck. And basically, this fishmonger was a partisan. In the 1930s and 40s, Italy was ruled under a totalitarian regime, the fascist regime of Benito Mussolini. And this printing press was brought into a country house where it has served for about 10 years undercover, run by 4 typographers and printers that have printed a huge number of printed publications. And look at the beauty. There are some examples here of the stuff they were doing. Like, typographically speaking, it's just amazing. And all of this communication about, like messages, values, and propaganda, and just real news that in a totalitarian regime was banned, was done undercover. Also, like the women who were usually transporting this information, this printed information, they risked their lives. And all of them, the typographers, the transporters, they were all killed after the Second World War started. So yeah, maybe, yeah, two different aspects of design that I want to come across in a way. This is now a monument for the freedom of press. Just a detail that I found out recently, so this was working with a pedal and some kind of like handles. I don't know how to make this work, but so my understanding of it is that you had to pedal 6 times to print one page. And apparently these 4 partisans, in one day, they printed 25,000 copies of the magazine L'Unità, the Unity, so the communist newspaper. So there is also this aspect of work that I'm quite fascinated by. I think like, I don't know, work is something I pay a lot of respect towards, and this image is extremely fascinating to me. So I studied at the university in Florence, and during my years at university, it was the early 2000s, there was this manifesto that came back into fashion. Have you heard about it? Do you know about this? So basically this is it's called the First Things First Design Manifesto. It was published in 1964 by a group of designers led by Ken Garland. So we're talking about New York. And it's basically a group of designers, this is their signatures, who wrote a manifesto and printed it, trying to say, almost like trying to make a praise that they were going to do as much as they could not to work for, it says here, cat food, stomach powders, detergent, hair restorers, striped toothpaste, aftershave lotion, before shave lotion, slimming diets, fattening diets, deodorants, fizzy water. So it's basically a group of designers who have praised not to work anymore for the commercial industry, but to work for something that makes a positive impact in society. And I don't know, this is something quite interesting how, like, you know, this manifesto is such a simple thing, it's just a letter, but I'm sure it has influenced so many people. So in my early years of university, it has had a big impact on me. I'm gonna tell you about this experience I had. I worked for a few times in these projects called artist in residency programs. An artist in residency program is basically a moment of research for a designer or an artist to go into a space that could be a gallery or a museum and spend some time there and come up with an exhibition or something like that. So I did 4 of them between 2012 and 2016. I was in Germany, Brazil. This one was in Imola, my hometown, and in Ireland as well. It's a great moment of not making any money, but you know, like these art institutions, compared to, you know, the big company, they have so little budgets, but their generosity is great. They still give you some budget to produce your stuff, and at the end of the day, it's almost like not much of a difference in terms of like how much you can earn working with the 2 companies. So you can imagine the amount of stinginess that is in this world, like of the Singaporean holdings, and like the generosity that there is in like these small art institutions in Imola that shyly wants to make a new exhibition with contemporary art. And so when I was in this museum, I looked at some new packaging design there. It's not boxes, but these are like ceramic artifacts from this museum in Imola, which is again my hometown. I wanted to make a response to this. So there is this great tradition of ceramics where I come from, and these objects, again, they would last. These are design objects, right? So I'm fascinated by them as a designer. And what I'm fascinated about is, one thing is that they last all your life. So these things are supposed to be given to someone for present on their wedding day, and usually people that come from poverty are too modest to use them every day, but you would use them on Sunday, you know, for Sunday lunch. And they're meant to last forever, and they're beautiful. And this specific decoration, this yellow background with the flowers, is the specific decoration of my hometown, which is different from the decoration from the town which is 30 kilometers away, you know. So it's very iconic, very identitarian. So I thought there was a lot of beauty there. On top of looking at these in the museum, I was also put in contact with creative worker like me, she wanted to stay anonymous in the project because she was working in this ceramic factory for decades, and she was making redundant. She was being made redundant during those days because of cuts, because of austerity measures, because of no more selling of, of ceramics. So she was fired, and she was a colleague of mine. And I asked her to collaborate with me. She's been painting this stuff for years and years. And so I asked her, can you paint something for me? And so I had this as a starting point, and I made this. So what I did is I asked a friend who was working at McDonald's to send me some of the packagings that I used there, and I gave them to this art worker from the ceramic factory and asked her, can you paint that pattern that is beautiful? And I made this piece, let's say. So it's a very good way of not making any money, but at the same time, I guess to communicate coherently the message that I want to communicate, like certain feelings or emotions that I want to communicate. Also to look at the medium that we're using, to look at the impact, right? So I call this piece Disposable. I thought Disposable was a good title because it not only tells us something about, this culture of disposing, but also about the condition of the worker that I worked with. She was being made redundant in the ceramic factory. One good thing that I did during this artist in residency programs is that I started to do collaborative projects that actually led me to work in education later on. So I started to organize workshops, and I don't have a PhD, I have a master's, but to do these kind of projects, so this was a poster workshop, this is me talking about design, this is us taking a group of students around the museum where I was, and these are the beautiful posters the students made in response, and we even managed to put them up on this town stand where we can distribute art to the whole city for a small budget. I want to show you this image because I think it's so clever. This is not mine, but it's from a collective from northern Italy called Brave New Alps. Have you heard of them? They are really great. You should check them out. So Brave New Alps is a duo from Südtirol, so it's the German-speaking part of the northern Italy, and they really work hard in the sense of graphic design and visual communication and the socio-political impact it has. So this is basically part of a publication they did about precarious work in the creative industries. And it basically says how, like these commercial economical dynamics are so important and also maybe a little bit complex and unexpected. So although on the surface of the iceberg, this is called the iceberg model diagram. So although on the surface of the iceberg, we always think of like doing work and making an income through wage labor or the production for markets in capitalistic firms, again, there's all of these other things that you could do, like volunteering or even freelancing, which is a bit different. I take care of my self-promotion, I do my taxes, etc. And you could do things within families, etc. So you should check out these Brave New Alps. They're really great. I think that this also shows a little bit my approach that I had in design. So I always had different sources of income, and I try to engage in different projects, so to touch base on different parts of this. I was in a presentation with Bianca a few weeks ago, and she started the presentation by saying, yeah, I'm a graphic designer, but I want to say one thing. All I'm able to do is because my partner's parents gave us a house in the north of Italy. And I thought, yeah, that's very relevant, because if you don't have a house, you're not going to do anything. And that doesn't rely on that, right? So how few people that work in the creative industries, I don't know, my age, unless you're really lucky, can you afford to buy a house? You probably need to rely on your family, on heritage, or things like that. So this is maybe like the way that I managed to make a little bit of income for myself, which is in the past 10 years, I've been working together with a colleague, Axel, in London, in this studio that is called objective.co.uk. we do what we call editorial design. So editorial design, in our opinion, is to take content and to translate content as faithfully as possible to it, or as effective as possible, to make that content communicate in the most effective way. And our clients have only been museums, art galleries, art institutions, charities, NGOs, universities, public bodies like London boroughs, etc. And that way, relying on some money that comes from public funding or collaborating with architects, it has made us, in my opinion, do well, make up with a good portfolio of work, and make an income, make a living without needing to rely on advertising, branding, marketing, right, on the commercial world. So just to give you some ideas, so this is a publication we did for the Design Museum London. It was about dwellings, so living spaces, with 4 different architects and designers contributing in terms of content. This is a publication that we did for the Wellcome Trust in London, which is about the history of medicine. A little booklet for architects to design in a way that is age-friendly, so to take care of like old people in the public space. This is a book that I did in collaboration with Delfina Foundation. It's about art, politics, and food. An Indian designer that goes to the V&A Indian collection, takes objects, and the objects that I guess were stolen in the colonial times, and then responds to them with artworks. This was done in collaboration with an Iranian architect who looks at the city of Tehran and oppression in Iran. And this was like an art exhibition at the Korean Cultural Center about power dynamics and art. So these are some kind of like examples of work that I actually like a lot to make and bring me happiness and some income. When I talk about editorial design, we translate that not only in printed publications, but we also do websites and spatial design. So we design a lot for exhibition spaces. I'll show you a couple of examples of websites that I did. Again, looking at the content is so important. Tomorrow I will have a lecture with the students, or I guess, or something like that. Yeah. And one of the tips I'm gonna make, one of the points I'm gonna try to make is like, again, not to try to come up with like aesthetic solution, aesthetic enhancement, but actually look at the content that you're working with and try to communicate that content in the best possible way. So this is an architect studio from London. It's called Neil McLaughlin Architects. Neil McLaughlin is Irish, and he represented the Irish Pavilion at the Venice Biennale a few years ago. We worked in collaboration, and this is a website we designed for him. And the nice thing about it, for example, for me, I was quite interested, is that the project that he's the most proud of is an Alzheimer center. It's an Alzheimer and dementia center. So that's quite beautiful how, it's important to bring quality in architecture and space design for these sort of like democratic instances in a way. So I guess here we were reflecting on how, like a website is almost like a space that has to be easy to navigate the same way as the Alzheimer's Center has to be easy to navigate by a dementia sufferer, because for them, navigation through the space is actually something quite complex. Talking about giving space to marginalized voices. So I've been working with this NGO in London. It's called European Council on Foreign Relations. They give advice on policy making to European politicians. And this is a very in-depth research on Palestinian politics, on the Palestinian political system. So it's the state, non-state. It doesn't exist as a state, but it's got a very complex, sophisticated political system. And it's not just Hamas. Most of it is actually the LPO and the former Fatah. And so this website was a way of mapping it. And you see what I'm saying about organizing content, delivering information. That's quite fascinating for me, rather than, again, looking at just the beauty of things. This is another project we did with them. So this was about mapping economic partnerships in Africa. I did about 100 maps with them, and it was very satisfying. I love doing maps, designing maps and infographics. This is something I wanted to say, like, for example, my students in Bristol everything they do always looks like a poster for a drum and bass party or something like that, you know. And maybe I have the feeling, maybe the students that work. I have really cool students, yeah, skateboarders, graffiti artists, yeah. I guess like lots of the students that want to study here, maybe they're fascinated by, you know, apps. Do you want to develop an app? Yeah, maybe. Does the world need a new app? Maybe not. I don't know. Just leave that question there. But, you know, like if you want to design for something different, there are so many maybe opportunities out there that are quite satisfying. I was working in collaboration, you know, for Yemen, the Yemen conflict, with this super expert about Yemen. He's an American nerd that works for the CIA, and I gave him like some large maps of Yemen. He's like, yeah, and here's the Islamic State, and here's the Houthi rebels. I'm like, this is really cool. I love this stuff. I did a lot of self-publishing. So this is a project I'm doing with a colleague in Bristol, 2 colleagues in Bristol. Carolina made a contribution to the first issue. It's basically a magazine where we collect text from contributors and illustrations to accompany them. And you can see how it wants to be a reflection on the left, on leftist politics. I'm just going to show you some images here. I just wanted to say one thing. You see, most of the time, this is what I do as a designer. So I just, I don't know, choose typefaces. You know, like this is like the very simple thing that lots of you need to choose a typeface when you write an essay. And I guess you probably go for Calibri or whatever it is, Times New Roman. They're great. My job is to choose amongst millions of them and try to communicate the right values. I just want to tell you the typeface that I chose for this magazine. It's called Social. It's by ABC Dynamo. This is the way the designers describe their typeface. It says, Social is a multi-people, multi-width mega collaboration made by many eyes and many players. As a friendly, smooth grotesque with variable font capabilities, it also fills a gap in our library, standing apart from our more constructive sans serif, blah, blah, blah. The name Social nods both to how the project came about and how designing it felt. I thought it was a great font for our project, and it looks really great. So thanks, ABC Dynamo. OK, so let me touch base on this project that I did, which is one of the 2 typefaces I designed. I'm going to be really quick. So basically, I designed the typeface in 2013, like 10 years ago. It's a system of typefaces. It's a family that comes with the light, regular, bold, and black, which is the width, you know, the weight of the typeface. I just designed this typeface as a geometric sans serif. I wanted to give it a rather friendly look, but at the same time with good readability, and also maybe having the right balance between headline and the body copy use. So I only did one thing, which was similar to this social idea. So when I was in Amsterdam, I lived in a square that was called Steve Biko Plein, Steve Biko Square. Do some of you know who Steve Biko was? Yeah, great. Some of you know. So I didn't know before living there, but I really liked it. So Steve Biko was a member of the African National Congress. So it was basically like almost like the vice of Nelson Mandela. So the South African movement for to liberate South Africa from the apartheid. Steve Biko was imprisoned, tortured, and killed. So he didn't make it through the apartheid, and but lots of his texts and political activism was somehow like came across as very powerful. And because I was living there at the time, I called my font Biko, and as a tribute to him. It's a short name, great name. And I put it out there. I gave it out for distribution. So if you're a company, you can buy a license. If you're, I don't know, an individual, you can just use it for free. And the nice thing about putting something out there in the world is that then you go out there and you find it sometimes. Some people use it. And I went to Seville in Spain just to party with my friends. Yeah, I was having fun. I went to the gay pride, and the gay pride in Seville, you know, like south of Spain, Andalusia can be quite a conservative sort of space in a way, area. The gay pride there used my typeface, Biko, for all of their communication, branding communication. So I was so happy. They gave me, at some point, they gave me a condom with my typeface on it. And it says, compartir momentos. It means to share moments, which is such a beautiful way to speak about sexuality. I mean, it just made me so happy, you know. I'm going to show you a few more examples. So this project is again by Brave New Alps from the north of Italy. It's called Comunità Frizzante. It's basically a social project to produce fizzy beverages on the line of Catherine Boom. Do you know Catherine Boom project in London? Well, it's basically like going out in the space in the Alps, collecting blueberries or herbs, go back home, make the drinks together, and then all of the graphics are made with my typeface. It makes me so happy. And they basically sell these very good beverages in Michelin star restaurants. But obviously, there is also this element of community, right? Like, so in a way, the typeface that I put out there has made an impact on those people that are like-minded, almost like responded to it in a sense of making an impact in society. This is a cultural center in the city of Munich. It's a huge cultural and residential center that gives hospitality to refugees. They use my typeface in their logo and very generously everywhere. They organized a peace run, so a charity event. And look at all these people. I believe like most of them are actually wearing my Biko on their t-shirt. And hey. And then this, I don't know if you know, do you know football legend Thomas Müller? He's holding my typeface in his hands and promoting this peace event, this charity event. He's a great legend, a good footballer. And then maybe this is also like the most iconic interpretation of Biko is that a Greek design studio, which I lost contact with, they must have been just a freelancer or something. He designed the logo for Yanis Varoufakis, who's a politician and economist, for his Democracy in Europe Movement 2025. So it's made with my typeface. So there's demonstrations, political demonstrations that sort of like carry that, that legacy with it. I've been working in education. This is the website I made for you, Bristol. I have the feeling that working in education is such a beautiful thing because you can almost like influence other people with certain ideas or reflecting on certain issues. And that's exactly what we try to do in our student work. And I'm almost finished. I just want to tell you about this. So this is maybe a good thing for all of the students here and also all of your students. It's an opportunity for this summer. I put together a summer school together with my colleague Axel. We got funding by the Mayor of London, so the Greater London Authority. This is the third edition of our summer school. It's basically a way to put together London-based community organizations and cultural organizations that don't have money to make any design work, together with young designers, young students, graduates who want to maybe start their career or have the first client after graduation, and also maybe try to work in a way that is more related again to community and cultural values rather than in the commercial industry. And so the applications are open. The website is wedesignforthecommunity.org, and the summer school will take place in July at the University of Greenwich.